Day 2 of 49ers camp is in the books. That's Brian Peacock. I'm Jason Aponte. This is Peacock and Aponte, or as the kids like to call it, Picante. It's been a while. Brian, how are you, man?
Picanti, feeling spicy today. And yeah, training camp back in action. Always awesome. Love seeing the new players out there and guys you haven't seen in uniforms yet. And to be honest with you, high level of added get off the bus value to the 2025 San Francisco 49ers with their first 2 draft picks.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wanted to ask you before we get into the specifics, and we're going to talk about everything that went down today and all the highlights and all that stuff. What do you think of the new fields? Right, like because I think the whole idea of it is that they can hold joint practices there now, and they don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, so you can have a full 120-yard field, I guess, is the idea. And it definitely kind of twists your head around when you kind of look at the pictures and being there and even Kyle Shanahan said it made him feel like he was getting seasick because he's not standing in the same spot, looking in the same direction. So it's kind of weird just looking at the field and trying to envision where they're at on the field doing what they're doing. But apparently they've done some upgrades there. So yeah, looks nice. And this is a football team that should have the greatest facilities that exist possibly for an NFL team, right? This is the premier franchise in the NFL.
I have to say that absolutely you're right, but I have to say that day 2 was a lot smoother than day 1 and the beginning of training camp. We had the horrible press conference with John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, which nobody could hear, right? So the social media team was off to a slow start during training camp.
Ooh, that's tough.
That's tough. Yesterday we had a very funny tweet come out from one of our most respected beat writers. I don't have to rehash that, but it just feels like everybody's rounding into shape. Day 2 felt a little bit more like on the rails.
Honestly, the Mayoko tweet I think was one of the best omens that we could possibly have. And big up. Look, Mayoko is one of the best in the business, has been for a long time. And we always talk about it. I say it all the time. 49ers are the most well-covered team in the NFL. There's a lot of really good dudes, a lot of really good coverage, both with writers, witty writers, and, audio, video, podcasting, radio, whatever it is. There's just a lot of really good people that cover the 49ers. So the Niners are very well covered from every single angle. Mayoko, one of the best in the biz. And love him leaving that tweet up for a little while too, because I think he's right, is exactly what we needed at the right time.
My goodness, was that for the culture? I promise you that's going to be one of those canon events for 49ers Twitter. I promise you, for a long time. But we're here to talk about what happened today at 49ers camp, and I think we should start with the first thing is that Jacob Cowing didn't participate. The 49ers signed veteran wide receiver Quintez Cephus, and they released Israel Abanikanda. Did I get that right, Brian?
Israel Abanikanda, yeah. Izzy, they traded about 0.50 in 40-yard dash times there with that trade-off with the maybe not quite 0.50, but the 4.3 speed of, it might have been like 4.28, 4.29, something like that with Izzy Abanikanda speed, and then the 4.7 speed of Quintez Cephus. But to be honest with you, Quintez Cephus, if you look at his scouting report coming out of college and his height, weight, speed, how he wins, the type of player he was, it reads very much like a Jawan Jennings scouting report coming out of college.
Yeah, for sure. And again, they just need bodies to run, routes. And that's what the Equinemius St. Brown thing was. And, now that Jacob Cowing, and we still don't know the severity, we just kind of hope that it's not as bad. But when you hear hamstring, I think you should probably, set your mind to probably the worst case scenario just in case. It can't be anything worse than what's the worst in your mind, I think. But that is the starting point, for again, that Mayoko tweet really softened the blow, I think, of the Jacob Cowing thing, because that felt like such a bummer. It felt like the door was kicked wide open for him to have a chance to really make an impact with his added opportunities. And now, unfortunately, a setback with a hamstring, and Kyle Shanahan said as much in his press conference as well.
With every guy that goes down, another guy gets an opportunity to come up. And look, one of my favorite things that happens early in training camp around the NFL, this isn't a 49ers specific thing, is the slow-mo ball spiraling through the air and then someone plucks it away, and it's like, I want the real film. Can I just watch the coach's film? I don't want to see the slow motion highlights from at 49ers Twitter. But there was one today that was an all-timer, and Isaiah Neyor has that height, weight, speed combination that allows you to dream a little bit on what he could be, and seeing him go up with his 6'4" frame and his 4'4" speed, catching a ball over the top of 49ers defenders from a Mac Jones pass in slow motion. Training camp is here. I love it. And I know some fans are going to get outrageously excited by Isaiah Neyor, seeing highlights like that. And, how could you not get excited? Because to be honest with you, we talked about the 4.7 speed of Quintez Cephus and Juwan Jennings, and it's not the most dynamic, speedy wide receiver group right now with Brandon Ayuk out either. So fun to get excited about players like Isaiah Neyor this time of year.
I'm absolutely already taking my victory lap, Brian. I've seen enough.
Okay.
Wide receiver one. That's it. This is it. Finally, you make a prediction a few days ago, and that comes out. I don't need to see any more. It's already done. Lock them in. But
you might say that Neyor caught 3 asses on that one play.
Yes, I'm glad that you made the first joke, so I don't want to keep rehashing it. But I think this is going to be something that's going to continue the entire season, and especially if Juwan Jennings does anything.
I mean, I halfway expect George Kittle to show up with a shirt with that on it at the next press conference.
And if somebody hasn't, then you better make sure that you get on that before somebody else does. But keeping up with the wide receivers, Ricky Pearsall working his way back from a hamstring, you suspect that he's going to be activated right when it's time for the pass to go on?
Yeah, sounds like Sunday, which is the after the first off day, have an opportunity to ramp him up. He's running fine on the sidelines, and you got to be smart about it, as you do with Jacob Cowing, because you don't want to re-aggravate that thing. It's much better to wait an extra week to activate a guy than to have that re-aggravation of soft tissue injury like a hamstring. So, and look, I think Ricky Pearsall's going to have a big year, man.
Yeah.
And so, like, I'm drafting him in all my fantasy leagues. Dude can flat out get open. Dude has pure hands. He might not be Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase, but he could be massive in the 49ers offense with Brandon Ayuk out. And he's very different than Juwan Jennings, too. And Juwan Jennings, by the way, despite that 4.7 40 time, he plays more athletic than that. That dude can get open against man coverage, even though he's not a speed receiver either. So they're going to have to lean a lot on Ricky Pearsall and Juwan Jennings. And, I mean, even with a guy like, you look for a veteran wide receiver who they brought in, Demarcus Robinson. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's like, cool, great camp. You won't see him at the beginning of the season when you need him. So it's like, what's the point of that, right? So that's one of the difficult parts, because it's like, man, they need that veteran wide receiver early in the season, not late in the season.
Right. And that's the thing, is Brandon Ayuk's supposed to be that addition later in the season, not the guy that you brought in to make sure that you're, taken care of early in the season. Speaking of wide receivers, and something that was kind of interesting that came out, not sure if everybody saw, Gabe Davis was on Kay Adams' show, and he said that his destination that he would like to play for, the San Francisco 49ers, he's a big fan of Kyle Shanahan. He did have him in for a visit. Do you foresee them kicking the tires on Gabe Davis again? And I'm saying kick the tires like he's some old man. He's definitely not. But you hear names like Keenan Allen, you hear names like Amari Cooper. Doesn't it feel like Gabe Davis is a little bit more of a role type wide receiver who can, fit in right away and doesn't necessarily demand the ball and can give you a veteran presence?
I mean, Gabe Davis is perfect. I wish you could just swap the Demarcus Robinson signing for Gabe Davis, because he's not going to be suspended. Now, as long as he does have, he's coming off of an injury, so you have to make sure that he's able to pass the physical and be able to play as well. It's a weird group, because the 49ers are clearly targeting bottom of the roster players, guys that have maybe been around the league and understand how to practice at an NFL level. But I don't think they signed Equanimeous St. Brown or Quintez Cephus to make the team. Now, they might hang out on the practice squad and be that extra 5th, 6th guy if they need it, if people continue to be hurt at wide receiver. But they haven't really even done much work on guys who could come in and start and play Brandon Ayuk's role, which perfect fit, ex-wide receiver, right? In Gabe Davis. I think he would be a fantastic fit for what the 49ers might need, the style of player that he is. When Brandon Ayuk comes back, he would not be a starter, but he has started in the league and could start some games while he's out. And he's available to play early in the year when Demarcus Robinson is not. So that signing would make a ton of sense. I think we'd have to have a more significant injury to someone that the 49ers think would be playing a bigger role early in the season, probably to sign a bigger name player that has that much starting experience in the NFL.
Absolutely. Benali P says, thank you for the comment. Not buying Isaiah Neyor hype until he catches a pass in October. Listen, tell that to Trent Sherfield and tell that to all the former training camp warriors, right? Like, like let's, like I said, I've seen enough wide receiver one. I don't need to see anymore. I don't need to watch the coach's film or anything like that. I don't need
To be
to
honest with
get.
you, he's kind of like the new Equanimous St. Brown, because I
Mm-hmm.
felt the same way about Equanimous St. Brown 6 years ago. Whenever he came into the league, I was like, there's my guy, 6'5", 4.4 speed, looks awesome at Notre Dame, has just a phenomenal A+ name. Let's go, Equanimous St. Brown. He was my pre-draft crush. It didn't turn out. It's hard for those really long-legged striders to run routes at a Kyle Shanahan level in the NFL. That's the big thing that I'll be looking for in preseason games. He's tall and can go up and get a football, and he's fast, but can he break off a backside dig? That's what Kyle, and can he hit his marks where he needs to be, and the quarterbacks trust him. And I think evidence is probably contrary to that from his college career. So we'll see.
And does Kyle Shanahan trust him more than anything? Like, does Kyle Shanahan trust him to be in the same spot? Like, we understand that even when they handpick wide receivers, it's not always smooth sailing and right away, right? Like, so I think he has a lot to prove still. But again, everybody is kind of focused on Jordan Watkins, and why shouldn't you be, right? You have the draft capital invested, but his skill set is so intriguing that it's hard to not be excited, for that type of catch. And it's been 2 straight days of him playing very well. So we'll see what happens when the pads go on. I think, all this stuff is cool. I think we're really excited that football's back, but we're not really going to learn anything until the pads go on.
It's all about the pads. Kyle Shannon talked about it. George Kittle talked about it. You got to have the pads, and this is a fun period for those slow motion highlights, but man, it's not quite real football yet. Let's just not pull any more hammies and get ready for Monday when the pads come on.
Yeah, he said it. I didn't. I'm knocking on wood. And also, Mac Jones, nice throw, man. I don't know what you were looking at or why you would throw it into 3 people, but hey, process over results, whatever. Who cares? It got done, and it's a nice little play right there. Speaking of other players on the 49ers, Christian McCaffrey, Nick Bosa, Trent Williams, all regular work today. That's good after not doing anything yesterday. So, take your time, guys. I wouldn't really worry about those guys too much. Make sure to just bubble wrap them, getting ready for week 1. Diamador Lenore got sporadic breathers. And this is all, by the way, Nick Wagner from ESPN's, breakdown. If you guys don't follow him, you absolutely should. He does amazing work. He essentially writes the article that he puts on ESPN on Twitter right after practice. It's very detailed, and it gives us a lot of things to talk about. But Diamador Lenore, sporadic breathers and team drills. Trey Brown kicked outside opposite Renardo Green with the top defense, but it allowed Upton Stout to get some first-team defensive snaps in the slot. Is Upton Stout still behind Trey Brown when it comes to the inside, or you think that I'll give you my take and then you let me know. I do think that the 49ers do want Darrell Luter to find a way to nail down the other opposite outside corner role, and they want Diamador Lenore to kick inside. Do you get that sort of sense?
No, I think the 49ers want Upton Stout to win the job. And Kyle kind of talked about. So Kyle has talked about it. I don't know if the players always agree with him in this regard, whether it's his quarterbacks or, in this case, corners. He was asked about Diamador Lenore and moving inside, and basically he's like, well, in theory, it should be easier for him not to move. I know he said he likes to do it, and he's down for it, and he's good at it. But in Kyle Shanahan's mind, it's like, well, it should be easier to not have to do that. So, and he also used the word hope. Kyle Shanahan said in the opening press conference that he hopes there are 6 rookie starters on defense this year.
Yeah.
That's an insane thing for a head coach to say.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of shocked when he said that. I had to rewind and say, did he say he hopes that there's 6 rookie starters? Like, there's an opening for all of those guys they drafted to start on defense. And Upton Stout is kind of ready to go. He played a lot of football at a high level. He played nickel, which is hard. Sometimes guys get forced into nickel that didn't play that in college. He played that in college at a high level. And if he's not a big-time nickel, then there's not much space for him to be a big contributor on the roster. It's like you either start at nickel and get 70% of the snaps, or you're a special teamer if you're Upton Stout, right? And so I think it's a really big-time battle between Trey Brown and Upton Stout, probably one of the top 3 training camp battles, in my opinion, because it's all about getting the best 3 corners out there, as Kyle Shanahan noted, and Trey Brown has an opportunity to play both inside or outside. So you could put Demo inside. Trey Brown could play outside in those cases. He could play nickel as well. And I do think Luter would kind of end up the fourth corner on the outside in that capacity. And then you have Upton Stout that is battling for that nickel spot with Trey Brown. So it's a really good competition. I think the 49ers will want Upton Stout to win it.
Yeah, and Robert Saleh talked about the safety competition as well too, and that it's kind of open. But it sounds like it's going to be Jair Brown and Jason Pinnock who are going to be the first two to get a crack at it while we figure out what's going on with Malik Mustafa. And we understand Marcus Siegel is there, but it does sound like, hey, Jair Brown, you're going to get a chance with Robert Saleh. We're going to figure out what type of player you are, and Pinnock is somebody that it sounds like this was Robert Saleh's pick, right? It feels like a Robert Saleh is like, I like this guy. We're bringing him in. It sounds like he has full control of this defense. So it sounds like those are going to be the first two that get a chance with the first team defense. And it's 2 days because Luke Gifford was running with the ones on day one as well too. I don't suspect that that'll be the case moving forward, especially in base. But it was interesting to kind of hear Robert Saleh talk today about an open competition in safety, and it's really just getting started. But I think it's those two.
What's fascinating to me is what they're telling us about Jair Brown and the expectations there.
Mm-hmm.
So if Jair Brown is starting at free safety in week 1, then they're telling us they want him to start at free safety all year. If Jason Pinnock's free safety, Jair Brown strong safety, they're telling us Pinnock's the free safety, and then Malik Mustafa is going to knock Jair Brown out of the starting lineup when he comes back. So I think that's really the most telling part of this is where Jair Brown is lining up, because that tells me he's the number 3 safety if he's lining up at strong safety, because we know it's Malik Mustafa's job when he comes back.
Yeah, I think so as well too. And it's going to be interesting to see what the dynamic's going to be when Malik Mustafa comes back, because it'll be a good problem to have if Jason Pinnock plays very well. And I think his variable, like the variation or the variable of like what he can be is so much, right? It can be all the way up here, it can be all the way down here, it could be somewhere in the middle, but he's a high variance guy, right? So what if he does play well? What happens? Does Jair Brown, go to the bench? What if Jair Brown plays well? It's going to be interesting. I think, with safety, you can never have enough. Obviously Richie Grant is somebody that's still there, but it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out, especially we just don't know how long Malik is going to be out. And what happens if both these guys play well? Who goes to the bench? I mean, it's a good problem to have, but, I think that's what, the 49ers are definitely hoping that both of those guys play well in the meantime.
No doubt. And it's going to be a fun competition, and it's nice to have a couple of veterans that have started that many games in the NFL to build out the rest of that roster. And I can't wait to see what Marcus Siegel looks like, because, by the way, he played a lot of nickel as well in college. And so with his athletic testing numbers and his ability to potentially move around and see how he takes to maybe playing a little bit of the deep safety role as well, I'm fascinated to see what Marcus Siegel looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. Offensive line is something that 49ers fans want to talk about all the time, and it sounds like it's the regular lineup with Nick Zakelj at left guard, because Ben Bartch is still recovering from that quad injury. Now, the thing is that Spencer Burford yesterday was at left tackle, which kind of just gives me the idea that while I know that Spencer Burford can play left guard, that they're very intent on keeping him as Trent Williams' backup at left tackle, the primary backup, if there's, God forbid, anything wrong with Trent Williams. So I thought it was kind of interesting that Nick Zakelj is going to be the one who gets the first crack at left guard before Bartch comes back.
Yeah, Kyle Shanahan talked a little bit about that, and I was somewhat surprised that he basically only brought up 3 names when it came to left guard, but he didn't say that Ben Bartch, even though he's going to be the first one most likely to have an opportunity to win the job, he didn't sound like he was penciled in to be the starter, that Zakelj was competing with him for the left guard spot. And he also said that we know already that Burford can jump in there and start there, but we want to give Burford an opportunity to win the swing tackle job. And we know also that Trent Williams misses games. He's never played 17 games ever in his career. And he's only played 16 games when it was a 16-game season, I think, twice in his career. And usually as players get older, they don't become more durable, right? So Burford's going to play if he's the swing tackle, and it's a pretty important position. They lost Jaylen Brown to the Chiefs in free agency that had that role and played pretty well when Trent Williams was out. So it is pretty important that you need 6 starters on this offensive line to start the year.
A little bit off topic, but we're talking about Jalen Moore moving over to the Chiefs. Have you heard that Josh Simmons is just fine, and he's gonna start. He looks like he's gonna start at left tackle, and they're moving Jalen Moore over to right tackle, and
Yeah,
so many people were just avoiding him like the plague.
and I think the big thing with his patella injury, it's like maybe patella tendon, I think it was. The big thing is, will the player? It's not so much the timeline of when they can come back and start to play again. It's more about, will they be the same guy that they were? And so I don't think we're out of the woods yet. And by the way, the guy starting next to him at left guard in camp this year, Kingsley Suamataia, he won the job immediately at left tackle last year, and that didn't turn out great. So and that's kind of where I come back to with the Niners. Like, okay, pinning all your hopes on, I mean, come on, 3, let alone 5, 6 rookie starters, like that, you are legitimately just crossing your fingers and praying to the good Lord above, because that's not a plan.
Yeah, and absolutely right. Like, we have to figure out what's going on, and see him play and everything. But wouldn't it just be the Chiefs thing if they just, oh, Josh Simmons fell into our lap and everyone was scared, and he just never misses a game, and he literally just becomes like a great player, and it's just like, oh, cool, and everybody was so afraid.
It would be the most Chiefs thing, and then Patrick Mahomes has a franchise left tackle.
All right, before I get pissed off, we can keep talking about the 49ers. So the defense looked largely the same. Sammy O and Mykel Williams running at the DE spot opposite Bosa. Richie Grant got some work with the first unit at safety. Mykel Williams, giant man. And Trent Williams talked about, and all right, I want to phrase this the right way. I like and I dislike his comparison for Mykel Williams. I like that he called Mykel Williams DeForest Buckner because of the skill set DeForest Buckner had. I dislike him calling DeForest Buckner because now fans need him to be DeForest Buckner right away, if not quick, soon, in a hurry. But it is nice to hear Trent Williams say those nice things. I just wish he would have just kind of kept that name. I like all the names, that's the name you had to say, right? Like, I mean, it might be true, but man, that's just going to make 49ers fans lose it again.
And Trent and DeForest Buckner never crossed over with the 49ers.
At all.
Right.
No.
So that's an interesting comp for him to say, because it's not like they were teammates or anything. But I get it with the length and the natural raw strength that those guys have. He's clearly not as big. Buckner was 290-something pounds coming into the league. So he's got 30 pounds on Mykel Williams. But Mykel Williams has really really the thing that sold me on him is the first pass when I was doing draft stuff of Mykel Williams, like, oh, good player, but yeah, top 15, I don't know. He's a late first round guy, maybe big defensive end, right? And I started watching more and I was like, this dude's 260 pounds and he is a leverage monster. When you're 6'5", 260, you're not supposed to be a leverage monster when you're asked to be playing inside in the SEC. And he was. He's got a really uncanny ability, wrestling background, which makes sense, to be able to hold up and play even bigger than he is. And obviously he has that length that Buckner has. I still think he's a little bit closer to Aldon Smith, and that's an even loftier comparison for.
Yeah, please, can we stop? No more former 49er comps, man. It's just going to drive this fan base nuts.
How about Gregory Rousseau?
Okay, that's fine. All right, look. The thing is I like that one because I think he's a good player. I think he's underrated, and 49er fans don't have this high opinion of him, right? So that works, like it's just, we're giving him a safe landing spot. We don't want anybody to just be like, it's got to be DeForest Buckner. It's got to be Aldon Smith. Those are good comps, but, Gregory Rousseau, I like it. I'm going to run with that one, and I'm going to steal it.
Well, the unfortunate thing is the comps are all 49ers, and the only comp I can come to with Alfred Collins is Javon Kinlaw, right? Because like oversized, huge, powerful guy who can bat people around and make opposing offensive linemen look like they're children, but then also can play a little high. And if he doesn't keep his pad level or doesn't win early, and sometimes they look explosive, sometimes they look sluggish, and it's like you hope that doesn't go down that path. But again, it's another 49ers comp, and their whole draft. And here's the thing is the 49ers did it to themselves because they used ex-49ers as the comps for everybody too.
CJ West is DJ Jones.
Right. And Upton Stout is
K'Wan Williams.
K'Wan Williams, right. And it's just down the list. It was crazy. And of course, Nick Martin is Dre Greenlaw. It's funny because that's what I said pre-draft, and that's why I put Nick Martin, albeit in the 5th round, in my final mock draft. Is like, well, this guy's kind of being slept on. If there's a player that kind of plays like Dre Greenlaw, it might be Nick Martin. Shocked when I
Yeah,
saw the Niners take him at pick 85 or whatever it was.
Robert Saleh definitely has a type. I mean, just like the same type of play. I mean, for God's sakes, when he went over to the Jets, he literally brought all those guys with him over from the 49ers, and now he's trying to replace the guys that left from the 49ers with players that are the same style, right? So, yeah, clearly, Robert Saleh is one of those guys, definitely has a type, and he definitely is trying to restore the 49ers defense to what it was when he, first handed it over to D'Amico Ryans. But yeah, I mean the Michael Williams thing, he looks great, and Trent Williams said it's hard to block a guy. He said it sucks trying to block him, and he said it's hard to block a guy when his arms are longer than your legs. Good, these are all good things. Obviously, but we're not gonna learn anything until the pads come on. We'll find out a little bit more about that, but encouraging words. I just wish he would have stayed away from that DeForest Buckner comp, and it's just like, come on.
Yeah,
man.
you don't want those lofty expectations. He could get there. He was drafted even. Wait, let's see. Buckner was drafted. Was he top 10?
I believe number 8, I believe, or 9, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, something like that, I believe. Right.
Yeah. So kind of in the same area. Alfred Collins is fascinating to me too, because I wasn't all in on Alfred Collins, and I still have some questions that I can't wait to see get answered. But I love seeing him out there, and obviously the eyeball test he passes because he's so massive, and I have questions about how well he's actually going to move, if he's going to be quick enough. And even Nick Bosa talked about it yesterday about what makes a good interior pass rusher. It's like you got to speed up your hands, and like he's got big, powerful, long arms and powerful hands, but I wouldn't say necessarily super quick. And you almost want to be like, you're boxing Mike Tyson inside, and
right.
you're one big haymaker punch. You get hit 3 times before that lands, right? And so that's sort of the worry I have with Alfred Collins. But I don't know if I've ever. What's the helmet called? The padding, the defender helmet, is that what it's called?
The Guardian cap.
The Guardian cap. Alfred Collins is the only guy I've ever seen that looks normal with a Guardian cap, because the rest of his body is so big. It just looks normal because he's so huge. He's even has huge calves too. He's like well-proportioned, large man at 330. Like he's just huge. And so again, like Isaiah Neyor, you can absolutely dare to dream just with those guys getting off the bus and seeing them out there without pads early in camp.
Oh, we've got some breaking news from Adam Schefter. The Raiders are releasing defensive tackle Christian Wilkins with the designation of a terminated vested veteran due to how Wilkins treated the rehab from his foot surgery. Wilkins got a bag, and they're moving on from him in a year. I don't know. Should the 49ers even mess around?
He's a baller if healthy, but
he's healthy.
Think he's damaged goods right now too. And so,
sounds like a 49er.
Right, yeah. And so I have no idea. Could he pass a physical? If he could, and he's getting paid from the Raiders, you don't have to give him very much. Absolutely, bring another guy in to compete, right?
Absolutely. I mean, that's one of those signings that again, he has to be healthy. But that's one of those signings that just screams like Chris Kosuric turning him around, because he didn't play well last year. After getting paid, but he also did get hurt. But if he's hurt, you know what, man, come on down. We got a spot for you.
I'm glad you brought up Chris Kosuric, because speaking of catching asses, he was all over. I mean, it's his style of coaching. It's not because Alfred Collins did anything wrong, but I love seeing a clip from practice. He was in Alfred Collins' ear, trying to get him to fire off the line, get off the line, play with leverage, and some coaching points for him. And I think for Michael Williams, for Alfred Collins, for CJ West, all of them, those guys played a little bit more of a read, react style on their defensive lines in college. And Chris Kosuric wants these guys to fire the heck off the football. And he was all over him. And he coaches guys hard, so it's not like Alfred Collins is the only one. But I love seeing the rookie get that hard coaching on his second day, because he didn't practice at all in OTAs or the springtime. He's only practiced twice with the 49ers so far.
Yeah, and again on Christian Wilkins, also 4 years, $110 million. On March 10th he signed, but he suffered a Jones fracture in his foot last October, which required surgery and ended his season. Jones fracture is that term is just it's very scary. Right?
Well, how do you rehab that if you can't run on your foot, right? Mm-hmm. That was the worry I had with Alfred Collins. Like, well, he's 330 pounds and he has a calf injury. How does he condition? Is he going to show up and be 350, at camp? And luckily, it doesn't look like that's the case. So that's a good thing. But that's the thing you worry about with those lower body injuries in big guys, because if you can't run, if you can't properly rehab that and move around, like, what else are you going to do? So it's hard to blame them, but clearly, you got to respect Pete Carroll too, because he's like, I don't care who hears it, we're going to win games. It's like, I win 10 games every year. We are going to win games. I don't care who hears it. And then you immediately cut a veteran you don't think is working hard enough for you. So you got to credit Pete Carroll there.
Raiders are gonna Raider, right? But quarterback one, Brock Purdy, newly signed, missed one pass today, 13 of 14. JJ Watt had a really interesting tweet today about preseason, about training camp stats, and I thought it was hilarious. Everyone has been there, has kind of indulged in it and done it, but you lose the context of what the play is, right? What's the goal of the plan, right? A lot of this stuff is offensive install, right? And you're trying to just get things right. So, the training camp stats are really funny, but hey, 13 to 14, and I've seen enough. Just wrap him up and get him ready for week one. He doesn't have to play anymore, and he's already a top 5 quarterback. But no, it says his lone miss came when he had both George Kittle and Russell Gage Jr. open over the middle, and the pass sailed a bit before falling incomplete. His best throw of the day was a perfect strike down the right sideline to Kittle, who got behind Jair Brown, I'm guessing, or Trey Brown, for a would-be big completion. Purdy did a nice job getting through progressions and finding open checkdowns with a couple of them, one to Patrick Taylor, another to Isaac Garendo, looking that they would have gone for big gains. No quarterback controversy, right? Even though the 49ers are promoting Mac Jones with the social media video.
Yeah, dude. Did that come from the top? It was like, come on, we need more slow motion Mac Jones.
Mac Jones.
Now, there's definitely not a quarterback competition.
Nah.
And of course, JJ Watt is 100% right. With one caveat, I think. Mm-hmm. And I get players and coaches maybe being annoyed and frustrated by some of this stuff. But at the same time, they treat everything, sometimes the dumbest stuff, as state secrets. And it's like, well, if you're going to keep everything hush-hush and not tell us anything, we have to guess. And if you don't tell us that you're working on something, how are we supposed to know, right? All we saw is the quarterback make a terrible pass to a guy who's covered. And so as reporters, you got to report on it, right? But training camp stats and going like, oh, this guy was this good. This guy was this good. He's 65% so far in camp through 9 practices. Mm-hmm. And like, it does get very, very absurd. And of course, JJ Watt is 100% right on that account. But also when it comes to draft stuff, when it comes to scheme, when it comes to like, I think it was, it always struck me wrong. And I've held it against, what's his name? Zach Robinson, former Rams coach. Now he's offensive coordinator of the Atlanta Falcons. When he was with the Rams, I think it was Ted Nguyen, who does great stuff with film work on the Raiders. He was breaking down something, and Zach Robinson out of nowhere is just on Twitter all over him. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, I got out of the thousands of plays I've diagrammed and talked about, I got one wrong, because guess what? You keep secrets and don't tell anybody what it is and what you're trying to use. We have to reverse engineer everything and try to figure it all out. And you're mad because you got one thing wrong. Mm-hmm. And how about that teaching moment? Coach us up instead of just being an asshole about it, right? So that's my thoughts on Zach Robinson. He's dead.
No, I agree with that 100%, right? And I think, whenever I post film, and obviously I don't do any more film breakdowns on YouTube because they just get flagged by the NFL. Thanks a lot, guys. Like, I'll just never understand why that gets demonetized. But even when I'm unsure about something, I'll ask around, to see if I get. And sometimes, I get close. I get, I hit it on the head. Sometimes I'm off. That's the thing, right? And it is that teaching moment, right? Like, people are afraid. People want to learn, but they don't want to feel dumb, right? And I've always kind of learned that, when I used to sell cell phones and I was a salesman, it's like people want to ask questions about the technology. They don't want you to make them feel like an idiot, right? Like, there's a way to teach without, talking down. Real quick, the last thing about the Christian Wilkins thing, this is not going to go away, and it's not going to go down easily with the Raiders. The Raiders voided the remaining $35.2 million guaranteed money, and he's filed a grievance with the NFLPA today. This one's going to get really ugly. So, yeah, I don't know how that's going to go.
I mean, do they have to have, I guess you could argue what list they put him on, maybe, but if you're cut, you're cut. Like, what's to argue about there, right?
Well, voiding the guaranteed money, I think is the hard part, because I think
Yeah.
regardless of the cut, that one's tough, right? Like if you're voiding
Wait.
the
Oh,
incentives,
how
it's
much did
different.
they
But
void?
33.5 million.
Lawsuits for days then. Yeah, I didn't realize
Yeah.
they tried to avoid
Hmm.
that much money on his contract. Oh, that's massive then. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's gonna get super ugly.
Yeah, that there's going to be a bunch of that's going to go back and forth for a while. So, hey,
It
I hope
doesn't.
his foot's good, but
I
it's going to
don't
be tough.
think. Well, is there a precedent for that?
I don't know.
Like,
And
it
that's the
doesn't
other
matter if
thing.
he sat on the couch with bags of chips every day after his injury.
You still have
It's
to pay him.
guaranteed money.
Yes, that's
What
the
does
point of
guaranteed
guaranteed
mean
money.
if you can void it?
Right, absolutely. That's the reason that all the second round players were fighting for all that guaranteed money and everything. That's
Yeah.
the word guarantee implies what it means. But yeah, it's the Raiders, so can't be just smooth and just say, hey, we got Pete Carroll. It had to be something else. But back to the 49ers, and it says, a few of the, Nick Wagner says a few of the lesser known wide receivers had a good day given the opportunities created by injuries in front of them. Isaiah Neyor made the best play of the day. Mac Jones threw it into three people. Don't know why, but Neyor went up and got it. Triple covered and left it and got it over Jason Pinnock. Neyor secured it, controlled it to the ground, and got up and pointed the first down. Isaiah Hodgins, Gage, and Malik Knowles also had some nice grabs, with Knowles capping practice by making a strong hands catch despite a tight contest from Chase Lucas. Speaking of wide receivers, Juwan Jennings continued his strong start to camp with 3 more catches. He caught 3 more passes, though he had a pass from Jones go through his hands for an incompletion. Aha! So he's not catching everything. Not as many highlights for the defense today, and the defense is usually ahead of the offense in the opening days of camp. It's fair to wonder if the many changes on defense are helping to reverse that in the early going. The biggest play of the day for the defense came on an interception for rookie Stone Blanton, A1 name, who picked off third-string quarterback Tanner Mordecai. The run defense was pretty good, though. Judging without pads is difficult. Nick Martin appeared to force a fumble on Corey Kiner, though it was unclear if the play had been blown dead yet. That's a good point about the defense being ahead of the offense, especially during installs and things like that. Also, by the way, little nugget, if you've ever been to training camp, the quarterback for the defensive install, meaning the quarterback who's, throwing the ball out there, they don't use the actual quarterback. It's Kyle Shanahan. Today was John Lynch's son, actually, was the quarterback, and that's a nice little nugget because it's generally always Kyle Shanahan when they're doing the defensive install. But yeah,
Former
defense is
tight
ahead
end.
of offense, right? Huh?
What position did John Lynch's son play? Was he a tight end?
Oh, I don't know. That's a good question. Maybe somebody in the chat could let us know. I don't know that actually.
Did he play? He
Um,
played at Stanford or something, didn't he?
he did. He played at
Yeah.
Stanford, yeah. And they hired him. They hired him. So if you wanna make a nepotism joke, you can go right ahead.
I mean, look, people ask me all the times, like, man, how do you get into scouting? What would you be? I'd be like, well, be related to somebody.
Correct.
That's the first thing.
It's just the way the world works.
You want a
Honestly.
job in the league. If you didn't play in the league, and even then it's difficult, be related to somebody. That is
Finale says former quarterback, and yeah, I mean, look, if I had a job in the league
quarterback.
and my son wanted to get a job, you're damn right I'm gonna give my son a job. And tough shit, like I'll never understand the people that don't get that. Like, oh, LeBron James is fighting to get his son on the team. It's what you're supposed to do. It's literally what you're supposed to do as a father.
It's the same with it. I grew up watching a TV show called Sanford and Son. It wasn't called Sanford and I hired the best possible employee I could find in town. It's called Sanford and Son. Yeah.
You big dummy.
Phenomenal show, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. All right, so yeah, the defense is going to be ahead of the offense for a little while, but I think one of the more intriguing camp battles is obviously linebacker, and D. Winters has drawn some positive reviews from teammates and coaches since the spring. Winter told us today that he's learned a lot from last season, including how to better recover and improve his film study. It's interesting to note that he said his interception in Wednesday's practice came as a result of seeing something he saw in OTAs in spring. He recognized the formation, knew how to play it the second time, and made a play. That's the kind of development the Niners could really use from a young player they're going to lean on in 2025. And I want to tie it back to what Kyle Shanahan said in his press conference, where he kind of talked out of both sides of his mouth. Yeah, rookies need reps, and that's how you learn. But we're gonna play the best guy, no matter what. Like, I'm like, wait, what? And the thing is you're saying that the reps are necessary. I think everyone knows that. But God damn it, why did you play why did you play Devondre Campbell over D Winters? Like when you could have just given him the reps last year. Like this is like none of this correlates to what the plan was, and it sounds like he was saying that for the rookies that he knows for a fact they're gonna play, but then he walked it back and said, well, if there's a good veteran behind them, we're gonna play the best guys. I'm just like, dude, you're just like now you're just saying this and that, and you're just going back and forth.
Yeah, I mean, obviously last year it would have been nice to see more D Winters, but I think the 49ers told us what they think of D Winters by drafting Nick Martin, maybe even a little too high,
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I mean, I won't want to say too high, but higher than a lot of people expected for, an undersized linebacker. Like D Winters was a 6th rounder, had a very similar physical profile. Dre Greenlaw was, undersized linebacker and actually was 15 pounds heavier, I think, at the combine than even Nick Martin was, and he went in the 5th round, right? So Nick Martin went really high. You draft the 3rd round. He was like the 4th linebacker selected, I think, in the entire draft. So that tells you what they think of D Winters, because they drafted a guy high enough that you might expect that he would start right away over D Winters. So obviously he's a huge camp. And I talked about one of the top 3 camp battles was that nickel corner with Upton Stout. I think this might be number 1. Obviously kicker is right there, clearly. But the D Winters, Nick Martin camp battle, I mean, it's awesome. It's huge to get that starting will linebacker spot next to Fred Warner. But I was a little bit surprised in the offseason going over the PFF grades. D Winters graded out really well in coverage last year.
Mm-hmm. He did. He really did. I think he was like an 86 or something like that. I was very shocked when I looked that up, because I was writing about him for NinersNation.com. By the way, I write there. Sorry, didn't come up with the name. And also on the screen, this is the Isaiah Neyor catch in between the 3 49er defenders. But yeah, it's interesting because I feel the same way about the D Winters thing. It's like, he's there. Yeah, it's logical for him to, be the guy that would take would take the next role, right? But do they really like him like that? And I agree with you. The Nick Martin thing kind of tells you that. And, it's less, I think, about the physical gifts, and it's like, just trying to get this guy through games, and I think that was really interesting that he mentioned about, recovery and being able to take care of his body, because I think that's probably the biggest concern more than anything. I think he's a fine player, but if you can't stay on the field, who cares what skill set you have? So yeah, I think that was really interesting for him to point that out. Obviously he knows that he needs to stay on the field if he wants to have a chance.
And by the way, Matt in the chat says, Sanford and Son, how old are you, Peacock? I'm not that old. They were reruns that I was watching. They just happened to be on the TV, right? I am old enough that where there wasn't a lot of channels on TV to choose from. So you get home from school and, after Transformers, you might get Sanford and Son. You don't really have much of a choice.
You know what's funny? I'm not that old either, but I know the catchphrase and everything. I think it's just because I consider myself as like a pop culture aficionado, right? Like, and I want to be cultured, right? Like, and I want to be able to have conversations with people from all walks of life and, things like that. So, and you know what? I think my father used to watch it here and there or whatever. But yeah, like, I mean, it'd be on like Nick at Night, sometimes, like if you just on in the background, like, after, like obviously at night. Yeah.
I mean, there was a solid block back in the day. I mean, it was like, you go
All in the Family.
Well, I mean, the after school cartoons, but then like into Rockford Files or whatever would come on after that, right? So we go like DuckTales, maybe Transformers, Ninja Turtles, Rockford Files, maybe was how it went, and then there might have been something else after that I probably got kicked off at that point from watching the tube, and it was adult time. But I do remember the like, okay, we're gonna go from cartoons to Rockford Files. All right, I guess I'm gonna have to get with it, like whatever that show is. And there's always like some weird adult show, and you're like, well, I'm locked in here, so I'm just gonna keep watching whatever the next show is after the cartoons too.
I would have been way more concerned if you would have said something like Kodak, like that's like now you're now.
Yeah, before my time for sure.
Yeah, now we're really getting out there for sure. Brian Peacock, 45 minutes. I was trying to keep it around there, but I did want to talk about something, and thank you guys for joining. Make sure you guys like this video, subscribe to both our channels and everything. You guys know, Locked On 49ers. Make sure that you guys are locked in there. You guys always are, I'm sure. I have a question that's not a non-49er thing, because my mentions are still on fire right now because of me chiming in on something that is football related but is not 49er related. The Jalen Hurts and Cam Newton discussion has pushed me to my wit's end with football evaluation. I never believed that Jalen Hurts is a bad quarterback. Let me just make sure I say that. Never once in one season in college or in the NFL was Jalen Hurts the best quarterback or the best player in either, NCAA or the NFL. Cam Newton won a national title, the first one for Auburn in 1957, and won the Heisman. He was the best player in college football that year. And he won an MVP in the National Football League. And he threw for 4,000 yards in his first year. There is no day, time, city, state, planet that I would ever take prime Jalen Hurts over prime Cam Newton. And the Eagles fans are going nuts in my mentions, and they won't stop. I stopped replying to people at 11 o'clock my time. It's almost 8 o'clock my time. This discussion is burning my brain, and it's really, really, really just evident more of just a straight up disrespect of Cam Newton because of a missed fumble in the Super Bowl, or you don't like how he dresses, or you don't agree with his takes. But in no year was Jalen Hurts ever better than Cam Newton, especially not last year, in which, Brian, I had to look this up. He threw for 2,900 yards last year, Jalen Hurts. 2,900 yards. I understand. They run the football. 2,900 yards in this economy? What? You should get that out of bed.
But he had like 31-yard touchdown runs.
Yeah, right. Cam Newton didn't need to be pushed. He pushed. I don't know where it came from. My phone just keeps going with more mentions, and it's like Eagles fans like, he's a Super Bowl MVP. Great. I don't care. Great. Two things can be true. He's a Super Bowl MVP. Cam Newton is a real life season MVP. 15-1. He drug Devin Funches and Philly Brown and that. All right, you can talk now, Brian. I'm sorry.
The only thing you had to say was Eagles fans.
Yeah,
and I think we all understand. I think that's where you just have to turn it off.
My thing is this, right? If I'm an Eagles fan, right, I don't give a shit where you put Jalen Hurts. You know why? My team just won a Super Bowl. Put him 32nd. Why do you get so bent out of shape? You got I said with Rob, the other day, you can have the ranking. I'll take the ring. I don't care.
Yeah. I mean, that must be why you wore your Eagles colored hat today. Right?
You are about to set off a inside joke with my community here and everything as well too, because I told the story. How I wear jerseys and stuff, right? But when I was younger, we wore the oversized jerseys. I had the green Donovan McNabb with the Eagles fitted. Now I don't wear, because I don't have a basketball team, so I can wear whatever basketball jersey I want. I don't wear other football teams, and I don't wear other baseball teams. It's either Yankees or 49ers. That's it. But yeah, that's a good one. You're gonna set off a bunch of jokes in here, where I'm the undercover Eagles fan, and I secretly wanted them to win the Super Bowl. Yeah.
I mean, you're already over there. You're in Jersey, right? There's a lot of Eagles fans around.
South Jersey, northern New Jersey. It's I'm right by. It's Giants and Jets country. More than anything. Yeah. But yeah, I just wanted to. I know that you're very rational and you understand things. It's burning my brain that people are still in my mentions and they're trying to fight.
I mean, it's the same thing with Brock Purdy and 49ers fans, and a certain segment of 49ers fans will tell you he's bad. A certain segment that I don't think the Philadelphia Eagles fans have that with Jalen Hurts. But there's a certain segment that will just fight you and tell you that it's like Mahomes, Allen, Purdy, Lamar, Burrow, so it's just, fans are going to fan, and that's the way it is, I think, sometimes. And I don't really have a problem saying that neither Jalen Hurts or Brock Purdy is a top 10 quarterback in the NFL, but they're both really good, and they're both right in that tier after some of the top guys. They just aren't in the tier with those top guys. And they're both really good in the schemes and do what they're asked to do and help out their team tremendously. They're good players.
They are, and Hurts won a ring. Yeah. You would think that would ease people up. You would think that Philly's so angry all the time, especially their sports, their sports teams. You think they would just be chill now. I really that would be water off a duck's back. Hearing Cam Newton say something like that about Jalen Hurts, I wouldn't be foaming at the mouth over that, because I don't care. We just had a parade how many months ago? I don't give a shit. But
I'm just glad I didn't even hear it, so I don't even know what you're talking about, because I don't really listen to Cam Newton either.
Yeah.
He was a better football player in his prime than a football analyst in his prime.
And I will agree with that 100%.
He's the Jalen Hurts of football analysts.
I will agree with that. But it's just Cam had to say something again because Ryan Clark came out and was going after Cam's playing career and said, you didn't bring your cape to the Super Bowl, and and he's like, and Cam's like, okay, you don't like the message, but don't shoot the messenger. And he was like, and if we want to bring up your accolades, he's like, I went #1, you were undrafted, you went to one Pro Bowl, I'm an MVP, like, don't do that. And then he went after he was like, Dan Ovlarski, he was like, I'm not even gonna say anything. He's like, I'm not even gonna he's like, I'm gonna leave it all the way alone. So that's kind of where this all started again. But I agree with you. I'm not really a big fan of his analysis. He definitely says some things where I'm just like, all right, Cam, like you're not helping yourself out here, dude.
He just does the I think the Warren Sapp school of you look like you're saying something really important, but you're not. You know what I mean? And Warren Sapp is the king of that. Like, I can't imagine what it's like taking his order at the drive-thru and he's ordering a hamburger and he's like, I want a Big Mac and French fry. And they're like, okay, I get it. You can just order normal, talk normal. It's not that important what you're saying right now. And Cam Newton has to look at that. It's like Cam Newton's like, check out how cool this is gonna sound, right? And he, it's like, all right, cool, thanks for your
right. It's like Costanza says. It's like if you look angry all the time, people just assume you're busy, right? So like it's the way you're saying it. It's like it's something that's like is like really poignant. But all right, guys, 50 minutes. Thank you guys for joining. Appreciate you guys. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel. Brian, tell them everything that you got going on and where they can find you.
I mean, it doesn't stop, and we're adding a couple new squad shows that you're going to want to stay tuned for on the Locked On 49ers channel. So 7 pods a week now on Locked On 49ers, and the squads will be jumping in pretty soon. And we're going to have speaking of rings, Super Bowl champion San Francisco 49er defensive lineman Dwayne Board from back in the day.
Wow.
And, I mean, I remember him from Tecmo Bowl, right? If you want to talk about how old I am, I'm the Tecmo Bowl era.
I remember that.
He's going to be jumping on with us, doing squad shows, talking about the 49ers post-game and doing some pre-game stuff during the week as well. And you can find me breaking down the entire NFL on the Peacock and Williamson NFL show with my co-host Matt Williamson, former NFL scout. And, lots of content, doing the pod thing. And follow me on Twitter as well, at BB Peacock. And make sure you follow Jason Aponte, a bunch of numbers as well.
Bunch of numbers. I love that. That's a great joke. We got to keep that one. But thank you guys. Thank you guys for joining. Appreciate you guys. Have a great rest of your day. And we're out of here. Picante.